A warm welcome to all of you. Thank you. So we have a wonderful panel here, and we've got very eminent professionals, thought leaders, I would rather say, from the finance function. And we have an extremely important topic on future-proofing finance. Uh, you know, uh, there are some statistics which, you may already be aware of, but just to put it in perspective, I'd like to share it with all of you. Uh, a report by McKinsey says that 50% of finance activities will be fully automated by 2030 using current technologies. More than 50%. The existing functions what you lead, more than 50%. Gartner says that by 2025, 80% of finance-related processes will be fully automated, leading to a 25% reduction in the cost of finance processes or finance operations. Now, these are some statistics, I'm sure, as the CFO is normally required to save a lot of costs. So on technology, using technologies also, obviously, this should come as a big motivator to you. Now, like I said, there are good thought leaders here. So let me start with asking our eminent panelists my first question on, how do you think emerging technologies can really improve efficiency or accuracy in finance processes? And if you can give us some examples from your own experience. I'd like to start off with the two ladies on my left and right. So if I can start with you, ma'am.
So there are many, the things we can use. We can use machine learning. We can use, the AI. We can use the RPA. Giving the example of my organizations, basically, I am a financial service company. I have a insurance and all. So we use RPA, for many of our things, onboarding the customers and all. When I'm looking at the finance functions, I have around 20 subsidiaries, and I have a major 5 businesses which spans from, the lending company, NBFC, housing, I have life insurance company, health insurance company, and AMC. And being a CIC, I need to invest in that company. Now, keeping track of the progress of all the companies, being a major shareholder, so I need to keep a track of the performance and all. So it was very difficult when the Parag, the CFO, is here from AMC. I used to ask him, give me your financials and all, that. So we created the CEO dashboard on the Power BI. So at least I don't have to ask Parag or any of the CFOs, that what kind of revenue they generated, dissecting between the branches, that and any city-wise, what kind of the trends are there, what are the key metrics. Simply I give them the query, if I have got any query on any of the variations or deviations if I found in any of the performance. The similar way, even the monthly review is been not done by, sharing the, the PowerPoint presentations manually, but it's been only on the Power BI, we, bisect, looked at the competitors' data. They have all the data available to them, the automated. So I think it's a single source of truth, which is among all of us, cross-functional. The more time is now being used in analyzing the data than just making the data, or validating the data that, oh, I have one number, you have another number in the meetings. So meeting becomes more fruitful. Be able to take decisions more faster and in an efficient way. So this is my example.
Just one add-on question to, if you look at the past 2 years to now, what is the percentage of improvement, rough I'm saying, improvement that you think from an efficiency point of view has been realized using, say, technology?
No, the lots and lots. In fact, then we did this invoice processing automations, So where we have put the budget also. So at least if anything is going against the budget, that invoice will never be processed. The second thing, it's strictly compliance with the delegation of manual. So when the authorization which goes for, to approve the payment, it goes to the right person. That whatever the limits, because the limits are sent as per their, their designations or their authority levels. Somebody has to approve only 1 crore and above. It cannot be approved by the low people. It needs to be approved by the higher people. So all these things are set up. The second thing we did a lot since I have 20 companies and all have a spend. So we have automated the spend analytics. So if you ask me in 20 companies, a vendor X, how much is the amount is paid to vendor X in a year, I can give you in 5 minutes of time by just putting a vendor name. So that helps me in having a good negotiation with him, because I really don't know. If I'm not aware, see in that the larger companies are able to negotiate, but the same thing can go to the smaller companies, they can benefit, because of power of one, that's the thing. So GST also, the full thing has been automated, and even the way the regulators are, because I'm all regulated entity. The regulators like RBI and all also insist on, online filing, everything has to come from the system. You can't just fill up any of your returns or forms, anything, ban Excel or all these things. So that also, to think through and to do it, everything automated. So you have a right data, accurate data, and all the returns and everything goes on time.
Fantastic. I think good examples, very good examples. Now I'd like to go to the second lady in my panel here. So Ms. Sandhya, can I have your view on how can emerging technologies play a role in improving the efficiency? And if you can cite some examples from your own experience.
Sure. So my story is also a Power BI story. So when I joined my organization a couple of years back, I joined in the month of November. And, before that I was with a technology company, and this month close or quarter close is like a very important stage for the CFO. You suddenly become very important. Everyone starts calling you, starts asking you for the numbers, where we are headed. You seem to have the key to the organization, that kind of superior feeling you get for those 5 days, and then you're back to reality. But I joined in November, and come December, the quarter is closed, and no one called. No one wanted to know the numbers. No one was interested in knowing where the revenue was at. I thought, have I joined a company that doesn't care about its numbers? Then I went to the CEO, no, you haven't called me. But he said, I've seen it in the BI. And it's all there in the BI. And then I realized over a period of time, the culture that was built in the organization was a very powerful, only BI top-down culture. So everything is on the BI. In fact, when I took over from my predecessor, he did not have any Excel sheets. I was initially psyched out when he handed over no Excel sheets to me, because that is like the power for many finance people. And suddenly you are in a place where you have no Excel sheets. And he said, everything is there in the BI. Everyone looks at the BI. But I said, some review you would have done, some management decision you had taken. It's all there in the BI. So that was like a very refreshing change for me. But what I realized was that so much of bandwidth is suddenly freed up if your information, like he said, is a single source. Then we went on the power of predictive. So we've built a lot of predictive algorithms into the BI. So for example, every day morning, the BI sends me an email saying, this is your expected revenue for the quarter, this is your expected profitability for the quarter. So we get of course it doesn't come, the first one month it's not very accurate, it gets better. But it gives me an indicative trend on where we are headed. Now we are working on generative AI. So there are two use cases we are working on. One is a lot of the leadership reviews today, when we say look at a particular data, we then want to see what happened last year, what happened last quarter. We can still go to Power BI and pull that data. But now we are seeing, can we use generative AI to say, okay, I am trending on, say, this district at this revenue, but how has it been for the past 5 years? So can I conversationally question? So that's a use case we are working on. We have come to some 80-90% maturity now on UAT stage. So hopefully we'll go live soon. The another use case which is already live for us is the training of finance people, because when people come into an organization, one of the things that they really struggle, especially in large companies, is just wrapping their hands around how to go about yourself. For example, how do I get a capital proposal approved? How do I get an expense approved? So we have put in all the SOPs, and then we have run an NLP layer on top of it, which kind of can read it, and then people can query the SOPs, and then people get answers from the engine. And if the engine is not giving a satisfactory answer, then it goes into an escalation. And so we can put the answer in. So when the next person comes, the answer is there. So that's a live use case, which is helping us onboard people faster.
So even the normal finance people, apart from the top management, can question and seek answers using this model?
This is for the entire finance team, and it has all the SOPs, process notes, and we didn't have to do much because the tools today are quite intuitive. So we had to make the data available, and then when the query comes for escalation, we have to answer properly. So then it kind of learns. So that's been very meaningful for us.
Fantastic. Now, we'll come to the second aspect on the same function, but we have two technology companies. So their role also is, because since all of you work with a lot of companies, and internally also you're transforming your finance process using technology. So my question is similar to you, but with a slight difference in terms of, firstly, if you can explain what you're doing internally within your own organization using tech, and also some of the use cases from a finance perspective that you think are really transformational.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. I think very relevant examples shared by Pinky and Sandhya already, which is typically in a finance function that we face pretty much every day. I, as you said, have the great fortune of being in technology sector for the last few years and also leading the finance function. And I truly believe the power of finance and technology could create magic, which could really give you and your organization that competitive edge that you would need. So just talking about few specific use cases in our organization, I think I want to start with people first. And there is a lot which has been said about technology and the roles that it could play and how it is really evolving and the use cases. I would want to start by saying that how are we leveraging technologies and the latest innovations to make our employees that much more productive. That is to me something super important, which is something that we have internally laid a lot of importance to. Here, for example, we are transitioning and transforming our company and a lot of our customers through a very powerful collaborative platform called Slack, for example. So we within Salesforce now starts our day and end on the similar platform, which is what we use to collaborate, which is what we use to do our trainings, which is what we use to do all our approvals, which is what beautifully integrates with all other applications so that you need not go to any other application by switching your screens either for the purpose of any analysis that you need to. So that tool, the productivity tools, integrates with all the applications at the back end, including the BIs. So all those views are available to you at the front end. So just imagine a scenario where you're taking the people dependency completely away, you are moving a completely digitized workflow, and your employees are actually seamlessly able to work, collaborate, do their trainings, do their approvals, and integrate with a lot of other applications on a single platform, which is really binding them, throughout the organization, is going to be super powerful. And we have seen tremendous results when we have enabled our employee with these powerful productivity platforms, that the level of productivity, the level of motivation, the level of collaboration has actually gone up significantly. So this is just one example I want to cite, slightly different from the usual finance cases, which is more about how are we enabling our finance people to be that much more productive, that much more engaged, especially in a hybrid world, because you may not have everybody in office. And I think going forward, we believe the world is going to be hybrid, where people would want to have best of both the worlds. So how do you in that environment ensure that they stay connected, they stay motivated? I think that's one of the use cases which we come across quite powerful and leveraging here. Just one more thing I will add to what the panel has already said is one on the side of proactive risk management, right? And the risk management, I think we heard Mr. Ramakrishnan in terms of how the laws are evolving every day. How it is becoming increasingly difficult to cope up with what's happening in the regulatory environment, and also business models internally are becoming a lot more complex, right? So how do you as a CFO keep a pace in terms of the regulatory developments which are happening? So one other thing we leverage data and AI very heavily is on the proactive risk management side, that AI basically enables you to scan through millions of transactions and help you find the exceptions that you need to work at. Otherwise, if you look at, there is a whole set of human machinery which is looking at finding the transactions which could be gray, what are the possible areas that we need to pick up, what are the deviations, what are the variations. So assuming at the click of a button, you scan through all your, say, 20,000 employees, 15 to 20,000 invoices every month, and it just gives you a list of exception of, say, 100 invoices that you need to scan through to ensure everything is fine. Similar example is in case of say PO management, right? Typically you need to be careful when you are dealing with say, as an example, government entities. So by scan through, by running an AI code on top of that, you can just pick up a couple of those sample POs which you believe that you need to have a double or a triple drill down on. So these are just few examples, of course, in addition to building those workflows which will give you proactive triggers that there is a compliance which is coming up, make sure that you have done it. There is a full set of repository which is maintained in an automated workflow. So just imagine there is a conversational bot which is working along with you, giving you all those alerts and all those indicators in terms of what is it that we need to do. It will make you that much more efficient and then make sure that you are complying with most of the laws that you need to. So these are the few use cases which I thought are quite powerful and yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Now, I have here, one more panelist who is probably has a different, fresh set of eyes to look at problems, because, these are traditional companies who have looked at finance in a set way, for example, and they're changing, obviously, using it. But I think he comes from a perspective where he has a mandate to suddenly change, or because you're an emerging company, .ai company, so yeah, let me have your perspective.
Thank you, Srikanth. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. First, it was a keynote speaker. I saw all that I wanted to talk, I was seeing in one slide itself. And then I had the fellow panelists who spoke about RPAs, about AI, machine learning, and then I thought, I'll talk about risk. And then I see Karun covering that also. So I don't know what else to speak about, right? So I'll give you two perspectives. As Srikanth rightly mentioned, I come with about 20 years of experience working as CFOs for larger MNCs. Hitachi Consulting was the last company. I was a CFO for Hitachi Consulting for about 6 years in APAC, leading about a 60-member team, 7 countries, 11 entities, and that was a first time then the so-called emergence of technology happened, right? Those was the era of ERPs coming, the database coming in and all. And we used technology because Hitachi, with its resources, ERP came in, and one of the biggest points which has not yet been touched upon was the intercompany reconciliations for us. And it was a nightmare when you have consolidation of over 900 entities and in your own region in APAC, more than about 11 entities and close to 8 countries, different forex rates. China's thankfully had pegged it, but Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and then we realized that it's high time that we start developing automation tools around intercompany reconciliation, and very similar to what Pinky spoke about on RPAs. That was the first technology enhancement that we did on top of an ERP. And RPS helped us a lot in reducing time, bandwidth, reconciliations, which was a nightmare. So that's an example of how we leverage technology in terms of RPS only for intercompany. And then, of course, large customers, invoices, bank reconciliations, AP, payroll. Because the irony or the disadvantage for us on one side was multiple countries, multiple geographies. And the advantage for us at the same time was the diversity helped us in automating some of this because there was a need for automation. It was not about single country, multiple states. And we never had, I come from a services background. For GST was not a nightmare for us in that arena, right? So switching gears as a founding team for Cognida.ai, I'm so happy when I hear generative AI being spoken about so many times. I hear about NLP and all because that's exactly what we are doing for a lot of our customers across 2 years, freshly minted startup. We have been working with large automobile companies, the CFOs providing insights as a service. But one thing which has not been spoken and touched upon was on the NLP part. Very recently, we started working with a listed company in US, and very interesting use case that came up to us. And we are a platform. A platform is called Zuno, and we have Doc Lens, Doc AI, and all. And this customer came in, and the CFO came in and said, see, when I go and meet my analyst, I get a lot of questions. Can your tool predict what kind of questions could come in based on what has been my performance for last 3 months or 6 months? And I need to be ready with those answers because right now it's a nightmarish experience because of what the US economy is going through, what the industry is going through, and he came from a tech background. And we said, we have the technology, you give us the data, and we did a pilot with them. And interestingly, the last analyst report that we did, we used natural language processing, and our model curated the answers for him based on the questions that could expect. And when we asked him saying that, okay, so I'm just taking a name because I can't name the client. John, how are the questions? He said, 4 out of 10 questions you predicted. Your model needs to be better on. But the best part is, those 4 questions, which included about industries, macroeconomic stuff, Fed increasing interest rates, Trump coming in power next year, how does the China supply chain look at, all these I had answers, so that way I'm really thankful. But the other 6 questions which your model needs to change. And the reason I'm giving that example is, I see a lot of listed clients here. I think there will be a day wherein you would use technologies like NLPs, wherein generative AI, which will curate answers for you in terms of, and that will be an enabling function for you. There will be nothing like an uncertainty part of it, because as CFOs, we are all chief future officers. So in some form, your analyst also needs to know that you have the answers to the questions that he is probably thinking or putting it across. Unless until the analyst starts using my tool and starts asking questions which is otherwise not predictable. So those are the 2 things. One was the analyst-related NLP, and another one was a typical RPA that we used across, mostly for intercompany reconciliations, because of the group size that we were part of. Thanks, Srikanth.
I think a very relevant point on future proofing. I think our topic was future proofing, so this is probably one example of future proofing. So on a similar line, when you talk about future proofing, skills are also changing. The finance function, as we have traditionally seen, has also changed a lot. So from your viewpoint, what is the most important skill set, in this age of bots, AI, machine learning, generative AI, and like you said, maybe there is a bot which answers most of your questions. So in this age, what is the most important skill in your view that your team needs to be equipped? I can start with any one of you. If I can start with you, ma'am.
So, see, you have a choice. Answer is a big no. It's as a need of an hour. To be very frank, basically, it needs a change of a mindset. Because maybe your people may fear about, the lose of job. Maybe they may feel it that their areas will be curtailed. Or they maybe may feel it that they will be less important, that's the thing. So I think psychology needs to be addressed first. And the thing is that it requires should be a top-driven approach. It needs to be, top-bottom. Everybody needs to be involved in the full, the organizations and the cross-functional team also, to be very frank. And the second thing is that take some use cases, do some experiment, and win the confidence of the team that how it's going to help them in, doing the mundane, relieving them from the mundane jobs, the repetitive jobs which they are doing, the things which are prone to more of a human error, their skills will be better used in analyzing the data, more predictive analysis, helps the organizations, take the right kind of a decision, I think so. And the thing is that CFO needs to be much ahead of the curve. He has to lead, to be very frank. And your eyes and ears needs to be open, that you need to have a regular meeting between your tech team and your, your finance team to understand that what kind of technology, is being used, what kind we can improve on the existing technology, And the second thing is that even your technical team, you may say that, please call for the, the professionals from the outside. So we would like to understand on a no-name basis that what kind is being used by the competitors, or what kind is the trend which is going, The second thing, many of the fintechs also comes with, the way I develop my Power BI, I've never used any big four names, I've used a small homegrown person, from the Gurgaon, help me in developing such kind of, the platform for the whole of the organizations, And so basically, you should be open, flexible. According to me, you should be tech savvy. You should have, the digital literacy. And I think these are the skills which are required, to, and I feel is a need of an hour. You don't have any excuse of not being a tech savvy, because that has been asked by everybody, right from the regulator to your investor, your shareholders, your board and all. And there should be a single source of truth, You should not juggle between, looking at the data, preparing the data, Excel sheets, and you are more prone to any human error and all that.
Fantastic. I think most of you have an eye on the future. I can see that. I mean, so uh, to Sandhya, I have a similar question, but a slight difference in how I articulated it. So for example, do you think it's important for you to have tech teams or data scientists within your own finance teams? Is that time and era come where you require more tech? No, not more, but you require one part of your team to be like really a tech person.
So I think both sides it has to work. Finance people need to understand data science better, and data science people need to understand how finance works better. But a step before that is that somewhere our approach to technology has to be to solve a business problem. So many times what happens is that technology becomes like this fancy toy. You know, I am in a toy shop and I want, okay, blockchain. Everyone comes because you're on some panel or somewhere and then somebody is saying I'm using blockchain, everyone wants to use blockchain. Everyone does not have a blockchain use case. It's very fancy to talk about blockchain, but you may not have a use case. So somewhere the skills that we are building inside finance should be relevant to the business problems we want to solve. That is one aspect. But then specifically to answer your question, the future of finance skills is in the ability to create value from data. If you take 10 years back, if you look at the finance pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid was all transactions. Over a period of time, most of those transactions have got automated. Now then people slowly, reluctantly move to the middle of the pyramid, which is more actions on transactions. So earlier, I was probably indexing an invoice and I was probably processing an invoice. Now if there is an exception management in the invoice, I'm handling that. Now all of those are going to get cognified, or they are getting cognified as we speak. Which means you're moving to an even more narrow part of the pyramid where you have to bring your creativity, your intelligence, your problem solving to solve problems, to create value. Now, the amount of slots available in that top of the pyramid is very narrow. It's not like a BPO where you have 2,000 processors. It's a set of, say, 20 people on top. So you're aspiring to get there. So how will you build those skills? So if you are going to say that I need a data scientist to sit in my team and be able to explain my data for me, you're never going to go to the top 20. Obviously, you may not need to be a technologist, but you will need to learn how to apply technology. So a finance person has to be a half data scientist. And it's the same thing for the data scientist also. He was earlier working in that bottom doing a lot of transactional work, and he or she has to move to the top 20 in their pyramid. So they have to understand what problems for finance have to be solved. I somewhere feel that we have to invest in more creativity and agility in the finance teams. That's when because we don't know the skill that is needed for tomorrow, but we know the path to get there. And that comes when people have the agility to walk that path and people have the creativity to apply themselves better.
Fantastic. So I just like to pick up one point from you, what's creativity and agility. I believe tech companies normally are far more agile and in the way of thinking. So just to borrow your cue, the question what I want to pose to him is, do you see this differently from the traditional companies? The way, you deal your finance function, the most important skill, for example, since you already have a tech team, you're far more, I would say, abreast with technology than probably traditional companies are.
Yeah, no, I would start by saying that now every company has to be a tech company. That's my bottom line. I think the distinction between, of course, there are some creators of tech, no doubt, and there are some users of tech, but I think within every organization, we need to find those elements to create and convert everybody into a digital savvy and a tech organization, right? It is no more that the IT department of an organization is something or somebody who will understand technologies, but for us as a technology company, the marketing department, the sales department, the GNAs of the world, and everybody is our customer and is user. So how do you create that technology which is quite simple and which you create for everybody in the other organization is quite profound. So I think the distinction between a tech and non-tech slowly has to go away, because then every company truly has to act like a digital organization. So that's number one. I think on adaptability part, in terms of, as you said, in terms of leveraging your own technologies, of course, we have that advantage to start with because we see a lot of innovation that happens within our organizations. There is very deep-rooted research teams that work on ideas which we believe could potentially be 10 years hence. There are a lot of failures, by the way, that happens, right? If there is any innovation that comes out in the market, there will be 5 innovations which has not worked, or somebody has shot down that idea. So there is a very rigorous research which happens behind every innovation which really comes out to the market. So to that extent, there has been a lot of usage, a lot of experimentation, lot of playing around with some of those things which have actually happened. So why I'm also saying is that look at the element of how do you take that innovation and the culture of failure forward, right? All this breakthrough innovation that we see today has, of course, sometimes been said as a stupid idea, but you never know the profound impact that this thing is going to have. So coming from a technology world, that's the insight I can share with you, that there is a lot of ideas that we always keep on working at. There is a core group which is always in place. They continue to evaluate what will work best, what will not. It all starts with a small prototype. And then we see how it goes. But just to add on the overall skills part, and I will build on this, another point which I think CFOs and as CFOs are evolving is in the area of making those customer connections and staying close to the customers, right? I think nobody can tell you better than how the world is going than your customers. So as a CFO, and this is another evolution I see personally in the role of a CFO, and I really take pride in meeting a lot of customers, the first-hand information in terms of how their business models are changing, what are the challenges that they are actually facing, what are the use cases that they would want to have, all of these things give us a lot of insights and information in terms of, okay, now how you as a finance function and more importantly as an organization should take that forward. So just to add to the skill sets you spoke about, I think the whole networking piece and how do you get that outside in perspective from the customers directly really goes a long way in creating a finance function which is very relevant for the future.
Fantastic. Do you have a different view or?
Agree on the so-called the blurring of lines between a tech versus non-tech company, because every company wants to be a tech company. If you ask me, when we go and present our cases, every traditional brick and mortar or a tech or a services company today wants to have an AI as part of the core of transformation, and that's the reason they invite us. But coming on to the skill set part of it, a different lens of looking at it is, it's been an hour that we are in this room and everybody has spoken about data. Everybody has spoken about generative AI. I think as CFOs, as I see, and especially from an .ai company, we are born .ai much before OpenAI was already there in the foray, right? I see data security and data privacy as one area wherein CFOs will be really needing to work hard with the IT teams and with their own internal security. And the reason I'm saying so is, a lot of the customers that we are working with today, they don't ask about ISO 27001 and all those. They're all thrown out of the window. They're all talking about HIPAA. They're all talking about SOC type 1, type 2. These are all latest certifications that are being asked by the customers in the West, especially when you go and talk about using the data in order to curate outcomes, in order to do predictive analytics and all this stuff. So from a technology part of it, I think a lot of the CFOs will need to be training or will be requiring to look at their own ability to look at how data privacy is something that they can control, because the regulatory framework around compliances on data privacy, whether it is GDPR in the UK or our own DPP acts that are coming in, is going to be immense. That's on the technical side of it. On the soft side of it, see, as traditional CFOs, we have grown through whatever. I can give my example, 2 decades plus. We're always like value protectors. We are always known to be cost conscious. We always wanted to look at how to increase bottom line and all. I think that era is moving on in order to be from a gatekeeper to value creator, something that even the panel also shared, right? As part of that, we need to be closely working with using technology with the boards in order to help something that we call as decision intelligence, that is use data to make decision. And there are tools available therein. So the CFO needs to change its mindset in terms of how they're using the data and how they're helping the so-called leadership team or the board in order to make the right investment for the right buck, instead of only looking at a cost consciousness or in order to increase bottom lines with reducing cost. I think reducing cost is something that will be always part of the DNA of all the finance guys. But what would help is increasing in the top line of it. How can revenue maximization help? Which are the areas that you need to invest so that the business can move forward, leapfrog, and be ahead of the competitive landscape? I think those are the two skills that I would say. Growth mindset, and on the other side, on the technology side, looking at what are the emerging technologies that CFOs can invest in terms of getting the business to the next orbit, if I could say so.
So I think one important point which came out of the discussion is about skill sets, obviously, but how do you ensure that this remains a competitive advantage? So for example, do you believe that there should be a COE kind of a model where within your own functions, a tech kind of a COE, maybe a data COE or a BI COE or whatever you want to get, a generative AI COE, for example. So how do you ensure that you build a culture of continuous learning and innovation? I can ask you something.
So one is, if you ask any finance person across an organization, you will say, I hardly get any training programs in my organization to attend. And every training program you organize, 20% of the people will come, 80% of the people will not come, and those 20% will be on their phone 80% of the time. So that dichotomy is there that everyone wants to learn, but no one invests that time to learn. So somewhere we have to start building that culture that people start investing time to learn. That is one. The second is a culture of rewarding innovation. A little bit of our thinking is that if I don't reward experience, if I don't reward hard work, then the person will leave and go. But if we are actually able to do a superlative rewarding for innovation, then that will bring that culture to innovate. Now, thirdly, about people have to be rotated into different aspects of business, sometimes pushed outside their comfort zone to do things differently. So my FP&A head, she moved into the BI team as a technical architect. So she learned Power BI, she learned data structures. I think when she comes back, and right now for me, I have a win-win because my FP&A head is sitting there, so all my dashboards, I don't have to apply any mind. But when she comes back into finance, after she finishes her stint with BI, if she chooses to come back, she will be far superior to anyone else who can come and do FP&A for me. So that kind of skill rotation, job rotation, sometimes people come forward, sometimes we have to motivate people to do different types of roles. That also enables a culture of...
Is that part of a policy or is it ad hoc? Or, I mean, as a process, do you do that?
Job rotation within finance is something that happens in general. But job rotation into another function is not institutionalized in most organizations because I think we are all also very selfish that I have trained the finance person for 20 years and why would I give them off to operations? But more so, people are also nervous that I have built this core. So it has to come from both sides. Organization has to push and the individual has to pull. It's not institutionalized even in our organization, but every now and then we do these examples and we motivate people saying, if you want to do something else, we're happy to release.
Anyone would add on to this?
Just give you a use case, right? So in larger organization, when I was part of Hitachi, it's quite doable. We had a very interesting model, and IFRS was being, the Ind AS was being introduced in India, and we thought, how do we train our folks? So we got Big Fours to come and do trainings. It's still not working. Same reason. People were either busy and they had all kind of good reasons to not come and attend. We started a TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. We had one guy, and we had a 20-member team in Hitachi days, one guy to come and present one, and then we said that's also not working. Divided the 20 into 5 groups. We said, groups, you make the presentation about one Ind AS, you pick up whatever Ind AS you need to pick up. Somebody picked up a revenue recognition of 115, somebody picked up lease, retirement benefits, and we said, okay, we'll do the evaluation of it. We made it competitive within the teams itself, and the winner gets a pizza, that's all. So there's nothing beyond it, but what happened as a process was 2 things. One, we were scattered across in 3 regions. We were present in Mumbai, we were present in Pune, we were present in Bangalore, and in Hyderabad. The team started working with each other. This is pre-COVID, of course. And then they made these presentations. As a result, they learned a lot of stuff to make that presentation. And it helped in a much more faster in terms of embracement of the so-called Ind AS. And people started learning before coming and making the presentation part of it, right? So that was an interesting use case. And then to your point, Srikanth, in terms of upskilling the teams itself, I think I've been blessed. I have a live example. Whichever organization I have been part of, Hitachi sponsored my MBA from the best universities in Asia. Now, that's what Hitachi does, right? So I did my MBA from National University of Singapore, and that's because Hitachi believed in my leadership capability. I don't know what they saw in me, and I was like, I did make a proposal to my global CFO. So the reason I'm giving that example is it has to start from the top. My global CFO believed that, okay, this guy has the functional school toolkit. I see him as a leader for future. Let him go and do his MBA. I will partly sponsor it. I was 2 years away from campus, on and off. It's like 3 months on the campus, 3 months off. And doing from NUS was something that I feel really blessed of. And what I am doing right now in my small company, I am actually sponsoring the CPAs for my team itself. I got a 4-member team. I'm doing that. And to Sandhya's point, I'm not putting that pressure of a failure on them. I'm telling them, saying that go and do this. We will be listed in US. I need you guys when we get listed to have that technical brain power so that you can be there, work with the authorities out there, work with the big fours out there and talk their language because I'm not a CPA. I need you guys to be my CPA. That encourages them. When they see that this is blended with the vision for the company in future, that's something that's motivated. People are still doing it. It's been about a year and a half. I'm seeing some fascinating results because 2 things. One, they believe the company is ready to invest in them. Second, they also see that how it's going to be effective for the company. They see a future growth and a line for them as well. So I thought I'll just share those two.
Very good examples, and I think a lot of takeaways for each one of us to imbibe in our own respective finance-related functions. One more important part which came out in the discussion is probably compliance. Now, can we assume? I mean, I would like to start with you, Pink. Can you assume that I mean, obviously frauds can never happen is obviously a very naive idea, I would say.
Yeah.
But, have we reached a stage where, it would require a lot of effort to create frauds? I mean, if you look at technology and the way it's governing and the way, you have control from alerts or escalation perspective, do you think, it has become a stage where technology can really help you become compliant with everything? Or are there any gaps still left?
So the thing is that once you adopt any AI solutions and all, that whatever you choose, it should be an industry base where all the rules and regulations are being, taken care, By buying it, just don't sit on it, It requires your regular, the audits, the checks, whether it is functioning properly. You can, do the audit from the professional outsides, okay, whether any leakages are still there, whether it can be prone to any of the, the cyber attack and all these things. The second thing is that you should be aware of the cyber security awareness, because the way the data has been getting fetched, the reading in and out, we are, seeing it that how the companies are being, prone to such kind of a cyber attack. The third thing which is there, that you should have a strict SOP, on the governance, on the data security, on the data privacy, which needs to be adhered by each and everyone. We should not allow any fallout, That's the thing. Because in fact, in my company, we are all a regulated entity, So any fallout is going to cost you a lot, Plus, we have a reach, the customer's data with us, So we have now this DPDP is coming. So we have to be, very cognizant of the fact that none of the, the data of the, the customers get leaked out unless we take their permission, to use that data for something else. So I think, so it's very controlled environment which we need to work. We need to have a regular audit checks, the controls and all the things, whether there is no any failures or there is no any deviation,
Karun,
I will just add, and I will start with a quote which says that if you believe compliance is costly, then try non-compliance, right? So I think compliance is definitely an area that we need to continue to invest in. It's always a race between how proactive you are and how proactive the regulators are in terms of the new compliance which is coming through. And if you look at the organizations today, especially with the advent of technologies, there are no boundaries, right? People sitting today are operating in 100+ countries. They have employees all over the world. So you may not even know the rules and regulations of what all countries you will really get subject to as part of running an organization. And on top of that, you always have the India regulation which continues to evolve. So I think compliance continues to be an extremely strong and very critical area for us that we need to continue to focus on. And of course, data and AI can continue to play a big role in the way we are really trying to be ahead of the curve. A few examples, I think I spoke about proactive risk management, which to me continues to be super important. Compliance is an area that you would not want to be reactive, but want to be ahead of the curve. So how do you leverage technologies like blockchain to have a little bit more secure workflow and secure your contracts? How do you leverage AI to run those checks on exception management so that you proactively pick up rather than any auditor coming and telling you, okay, this is not something that should be in order. How do you have your audit trails, which is strongly documented and digitized so that it is free from any personal or manual intervention, but there is everything which is digitized in the format and through the workflows which is available so that you could go back to history and track any transaction that you would want to have. And I think, in general, if you look at from a compliance perspective, that how do you, partner with the entire ecosystem, which is important because as an organization today, we work with a lot of consultants, a lot of technology companies, a lot of other partners that we need to have. So how do you work with credible partners who have a demonstrated position around trust, around ethics, around the compliances that they take pride in? So how do you as an organization choose to work with the vendor ecosystem or the partner ecosystem, I think becomes that much more critical. So the whole process of evaluation of the people that you will work with and how strongly they demonstrate their commitment to compliance really helps you add that additional layer of scrutiny or of support so that you could ensure that then you are not going anything on the wrong side of the piece. And I think the last and the biggest, which I think Pinky alluded to, is the whole data governance piece, right? And I think finance is all about data. I think we are the custodians of huge amount of data. There are enough surveys which says that on an average, every organization use almost 150 different applications to generate data. Now, all of those applications, we don't even know, data could be structured, unstructured, could be on premise, could be on cloud. So how do you really define your data governance policies? What are the process flows through which your data is going? How do you digitize that data? What's the warehouse or the data warehouse that you're using to host that data? How do you build intelligence analytics on top of that data to really harness the powers? This entire value chain of the data flow has to be extremely secure. It has to be really completely transparent, and you as a CFO need to know the different systems and the backend systems that the data actually flows through. So a strong governance around data and the data governance, I think, is super important because we make a lot of decisions leveraging on that data. And if there is any breach which happens in terms of your data advocacy and data flow, you lose that trust to your customers, and more importantly, you could end up making all of those wrong decisions which you would not want to at the end of the day. So these are the few additional pieces on the compliance side, I think.
Thanks a lot. I think very good articulation of points. Now, we'll probably take a peek at the future. What I'd like our fellow panelists to do is think ahead maybe 3 years, 4 years, because normally when in panels I say 5 years, they say, oh, 5 years is too long a time. The world gets changed in 1 year or 2 years time. So what I'd like you to do is specifically when you look at generative AI and what's possible now, like I think one point you mentioned about ethics. Now with generative AI, there are a lot of risks with data being generated, the way you use data, the skill sets part also come in play. For example, compliance also with respect to if you're using generative AI specifically, So how do you see the future from the finance perspective? If you just put on your thinking cap and probably take a view in what is possible in the future, what kind of technologies will make a bigger impact. Pinky, if I can start with you.
So for finance, I think it needs to partner with, all the cross functions, to achieve the right result, to be very frank. So the thing is that more and more, being a tech savvy, adopt all the cloud-based accounting, softwares and AI and, the machine learning, RP and all these things. I think the more what I feel it is that more of a, the cyber security, it's really, the other thing is data protections and data privacy, because looking at my industry where I'm sitting on the host of data for the customers, right, from, each and everything, even about their financial information, because I sell the financial products to them. I give them the loan, I give them the insurance and all these things. So I think it's going to be a big challenge that, that how we comply with the law in, the true spirit of the things, And you rightly said that the technology, once you adopt, you can't sit on it. You need to review it, you to be more flexible, more agile, your organization should be, to adopt to the new technology, you need to keep your ears and eyes open that what kind of things are going in the market, what kind of things which has been used by the other organizations which can help you, to be more productive, to take the decisions in the right, in the efficient and, instead of, juggling with the data and all,
Fantastic. Sandhya?
I'm going to give a conservative response. I think you will always have some technology or the other coming. Now, 3 years back, generative AI, we had no knowledge or something like that. Now, everyone and everybody's uncle talks about generative AI. Maybe 2 years from now, people will talk about autonomous AI. Then, people will talk about disappearing human intelligence. But the real important thing for us is to be able to realize value from whatever technology we implement. So therefore, go deep in every technology that we pick up, realize all the value that is, because every technology is a huge investment, not just in terms of money, but in terms of effort, organizational change management, training, learning. So every technology we choose, so for example, Karun is here, so I'm taking the example of Salesforce. We implemented Salesforce earlier this year. Immediately we got onto a business value realization with Salesforce to say, now that I have implemented Salesforce, how is it adding to my bottom line and what business value am I able to generate? So can I build some KPIs and start measuring? So really every technology choice we make today and every day, we have to go deep in those technology choices and try to measure value for that business, extract all the juice there is in that technology till the next technology comes. And then we can assess it on its own merit, whether it adds value to the business and have that agility to adopt it at that point in time.
Fantastic. I think she spoke like a true CFO now. Extract the full value of the technology before we move on to it. So thank you for that. Yeah,
No, I can't agree more with what Sandhya said. I think technology is an enabler, right? So the business strategy continues to be superseding force, and eventually everything you do underneath has to marry to your business strategy as you go forward. So you need to ensure that technology is embedded into every different function that you have within your organization, and it is actually enabling you to go forward and ensure that sustainable growth that you are looking at. Just a couple of additional things I just want to add. I think, again, I will come back to the point that, as Sandhya said, technologies will keep coming, will keep innovating, will keep moving. But what you need as an organization to be successful is, one, how do you create that nimble and agile organization, right? I think we all now need to learn to be, comfortable with being uncomfortable. The change is only constant that we continue to see. So how do you create that culture or a workforce which is resilient, which does not fear change, and you know that there is something or the other continue to disrupt you? So how do you create that culture of adaptability and flexibility that you are creating, and you're creating a nimble organization that any such disruption which happens going forward, you as an organization are actually ready for that. And if you really look at it, the only constant that carries through, and the constant which is carried through multiple generations, is actually the workforce that you have as an organization. So how do you create that cutting edge workforce which is really ready for any sort of disruption which is going to happen in the future, and the workforce which is resilient, the workforce which will try out new stuff, the workforce which will carry you through the thick and thin, and the workforce which will continue to embrace technology and create value, which I think is in line with the business strategy that you need to go forward. So I think, yes, technology continues to be super important. It has to be embedded into the business strategy. It is that competitive differentiation that you need to have as you go forward. But I think the culture that you create about being adaptable, about being flexible, and the investments you make in your workforce to continue to be the tech savvy and flexible organization is really, I believe, will help us navigate through the next 3 to 5 years in this industry.
fantastic.
I'll give you a technology answer to this, right? Because what's the future part of it? The CFOs have spoken everything, I agree. I think two technologies that we personally are tracking is quantum computing. I see a huge amount of possibilities in terms of once the computers and the algorithms can start looking at beyond binary numbers, right? So quantum is basically they can do much more faster number crunching and modeling that is going to come out of it. A lot of companies have already started working on it, but still the technology part of it is not evolved. Once that comes in, it is going to be one more generative AI times 10 times, right? So that's one part of the second. And the second is blockchain. We're actually working with a lot of financial institutions today in terms of and fintech companies and cross-border payments, smart contracts. I do see a great possibility for blockchain to come and help all of us in our own functions. This is still, people have still now gone through the AI buzz and AI frenzy, but blockchain has already been there. Unfortunately, people, when we speak about blockchain, they talk about cryptocurrency, but there is much more to a decentralized finance and distributed ledger network. So that's two technologies that I am really looking at. And in terms of the question that you had on the future, I think the future, the compliance part would be very, very important for all of us, but the compliance would be slightly different. The compliance would be around AI. Now, I don't know how many of us have followed that in US last week, they passed an executive order on AI governance. There'll be a lot of countries who will start looking at AI. Deepfake story was already there with some film stars being mobbed and all those stuff. But on the other side, the compliance part that I'm saying is AI is a black box. I don't know what outcomes come in. As an AI company, I'm saying my model gives me outcomes. I don't know how is the input is getting into an output. So it's the transparency is still not there. Second thing is ethical AI is something that everybody is talking about, but we don't know what kind of data is being fed into. We can't validate the data. So as an organization, it's very important that all of us understand the source of the data. All of us understand that the data is coming from trustworthy sources. Otherwise, what your AI models will do is it will hallucinate. It will try to create models which you would try rely on, and then when you start looking at it, it will not help you because those are data which is not correct data. If your trend data says that, okay, I will take a Salesforce example, right? So from Salesforce, you took the data and that data is incorrect, then it gives you the future forecasting which is completely incorrect. And then all your strategies, all your investments, all the money that is spent in based on that trends, based on an AI output, will not result in the right data as well. So I do see a lot of AI-led governance coming in, AI-led compliances coming in. Transparency in AI system, I don't know how much of that is a mirage right now, but there will be a lot of compliances driven from AI rather than from transfer pricing, taxation, and GST, right? So that will be a huge shift for a lot of companies, and we are yet to see that because it's only US who has woken up to it. Other countries have still not woken up to what is called as an AI governance or AI framework.
I think we have fairly covered a lot of ground. When I started this panel or before I entered this panel, I thought, normally CFOs, I did not expect them to be as tech savvy as, I have now discovered. So, I really appreciate your knowledge, and I believe the finance function is far more closer to technology than probably what's been perceived, if I may say so. I have about 3 minutes left. If I can take one question. You can just raise your hand if you have for any of the panelists. Yeah, can I just state your name and the question, your organization you're from?
Dinesh Mittal. You just touched upon the point of correctness of data. So when we work on BI model, then there is predefined set of logics within the system. So all the tables designed at the back end, and then we get the data, and then we can assess the correctness of the data in case there is any user is not in alignment of the data. But in the AI, when AI processing it with its own learned logic, then how that logics between the output and the tables defined at the backend, how we can ensure that that output is very much relevant with the input data stored.
That's a concern that I was talking about, but very relevant question, Dinesh. My view on there would be that when we look at data, there are two types of data. One is a structured data, one is an unstructured data, right? So wherever it's structured data, it's all rule-based. You have all your files, it's all labeled and all. I don't see a risk with that. But what generative AI today is doing is it started thinking like humans. So it is generating content by itself, right? So what you see today is not like my name is Sumesh, you put it 10 times and then next time you say my name, it will start writing Sumesh. It is now started writing Ramesh and Mahesh because there is somebody who has fed that data therein. So the risk in terms of those synthetic data generation is how much you are able to control the data that has been fed into the system, into the AI system. The control has to be on the input. Nobody can control the logic because logic would be all based on an AI and machine learning models, which is probably a .NET or a Java or a Python based logic that's been put in. So as long as we are ensuring that the input is right, I don't think there'll be much of a concern on the output. But having said so, I don't completely have a visibility in terms of whether AI will start hallucinating even if you give right data. Right now, we have not seen it. In my model, in Zuno, what the model that we use, We've been giving 6, 12, 15 months data right now, which are all structured data. We're not seeing any issues with that right now. But these are all structured data. I don't know what would happen with case of an unstructured data. I don't think world has to discover it right now.
If I can just quickly add, I think, so the basis of any advanced analytics or AI has to be data, right? I think that's the first step. Before we think about AI and building any advanced analytical models, I think we need to think about data first. I gave an example of how every company on an average have 50 to 100 different data sources, right? And it could be structured or unstructured. So I think first every organization needs to have a data strategy. They need to have a data culture in terms of what are the different systems through which the data flow. Can we have a single source of data warehouse where all of those inputs will feed in data, and then you can have some sort of a data cleansing which could happen at that point of time, and then you could build any analytical model or any AI model on top of that. And I think the beauty is that if you really are looking for an output from an AI perspective, the first thing you need to make sure is the data is in order. And another thing that I have seen personally in our organization, we have completely transformed our business to a single source of truth now. And I think we heard some examples about the BI tools. We, of course, leverage Tableau. So at the back end, what we have ensured is that if you have one single source of truth across organization where all of your chairperson to every seller on the ground is looking at same set of output, your quality of input is bound to improve slowly, right? If there are, the challenge is that all of us go in with the different sets of data, which is what we really want to avoid. So how do you manage that journey from different sources to a common data warehouse and then some data cleansing and then building advanced analytics on top of that is really going to be the key. But the moment you move your organization to say a single source of truth, where all of you are actually looking at a similar output, of course access control depending on which level of hierarchy you are, the quality of the inputs that comes in from all of those verticals is bound to improve over time. But yes, it will take time. It is a journey. Like any innovation, AI will also learn. But I think if we make the progress to get our data in order, slowly we will start to see some progress in the positive direction.
So thank you. I have unfortunately run out of time. In fact, I don't know how much can I look at the MC. Okay, we'll take one question. Okay, very short question and yeah, sorry. Okay, one by one. Yeah, okay, fine.
I'm Vinay Singhal. I practice and freelance into business transformation, though I come from the finance field. But what I hear from all the panelists is about various, I mean, we have been highlighting much about the BI. So I think BI is only about the presentation of the data in a much better manner. At the same time, we have been talking about the reconciliation things. But in all these discussions, I feel that one important part is missing is about the knowledge level of the people that is coming into the finance team. And as what Sandhya has said, that okay, they try to train the people in a different manner altogether. But I think it's all about the design, what we do. I've been seeing all these clients, but the basic design or the basic structure of the chart of account is also missing. And because of that, you have so many disparities and about the vision of the data is missing around. And I feel that, and people are also using various modules or various systems for every functions. If we use a seamless one single kind of a tool or a model, I think it will be much better and we don't require all these reconciliation parts and the visibility of the data will be much clearer. So I think the training and the designing part is very, very apt for this time.
Yeah, actually it is par for course because each organization has its own legacy to where the organization has come to. So if I had a drawing board and I say, can I implement a harmonized system? It's an obvious answer. Obviously, I've come with certain systems, certain data structures, certain processes, and sometimes they work with a certain reconciliation, like you were saying, and therefore, you have to train people on them, and they don't have the basic knowledge to go through it. So there are two parts to that answer. One is, we have to constantly be on the simplification journey and over a period of time achieve the desired level of, that's why I guess business transformation professionals like you bring that outside and then bring that value and take organizations on that path on how we can get to a better system. See, everything is cost, everything is investment. You're prioritizing certain investments to certain outcome. So for example, if I have 100 crores of money and I'm going to say invest it in marketing versus automating finance, I'm obviously going to get a better ROI in investing in marketing. But that does not mean I will put 0 in finance. So I will do a 80-20 kind of number. So in that 20, I have to figure out what I can automate. So those are choices which organizations will make. Now, second aspect is as far as people is concerned, the starting point is our leaders have to take accountability across the organization for grooming people. Most of the time, what people expect is that somebody who's ready-made understands that skill. If I am controllership, I know accounting reconciliation. This guy leaves, I need exactly same 5-year accounting reconciliation who's worked on Oracle, not even SAP, to come and take over the role. That level of laziness, I want to use the word laziness on purpose, is there, that we want people to be ready-made. Everybody is work in progress. So somewhere we have to motivate our own leaders to work on people to learn and get trained, and organization has to enable with training programs, but leaders have to have the patience to build talent, because when people learn on the job, they just don't learn how to do the work, they learn the skill of learning, which is far more important, because in today's time, whatever you're doing will change in 2 years. So the more people learn the skill of learning, the better they will be. So both sides we have to work on.
Thank you. One last question I can take.
So thank you. My name is Manish Junjunwala, and thank you for this enriching discussion that we are having right now. And I fully agree, we as finance professionals have really evolved and now close to the technology. So I'll keep my question very short and sweet. 2 points. I worked with large corporations, big MNCs, which has operations in more than 100 countries. So I've seen a trend where they wanted to go towards the digital side, but they have a lot of limitations. I think 2 limitations that they have faced. One is the number of applications that they have, and how these applications will go and talk to this newer age technology, which is MI, RPA. So how are we looking at navigating those? And number 2 is, if we want to implement something in India, we need to have some global approvals before we have something in India. So how are we looking at these 2 aspects, in larger corporations from a digital perspective?
Anyone would want to answer this question?
Yeah, so, on the second part in terms of alignment with global, right, that's what your point has been. You may be right, in a global organizations, the decisions could be sitting in certain headquarter organizations, but I think these days we are finding that a lot of global MNCs are actually empowering a lot of the countries that they're operating in. It is eventually creating the economic surplus in the entity that you operate at, and then you need to listen in terms of the needs which are coming on from the ground. So I think as an organization, what we have done is we have a very strong feedback loop going between the countries that we operate at and the global headquarters. And there are periodic conversations which happens in terms of, okay, what are the product innovations that you need? What are you hearing from Indian customers? What's happening from an Indian market perspective? So there is a lot more reception, which I have seen across the MNCs now, and they are a lot more open to creating the localized products, creating the localized innovations, which I think could go a long way. But again, I think, as I said, you need to have a very strong communication channel, strong feedback loop, which actually has to go and continue between the entities, so that they could actually have that free flow of information, and the process and the decision making could be faster. So that's the second one. Sorry, the first point, can you repeat? The first question that you had was?
Question was, bigger
integrations, right? Yeah. So integrations you meant. So
yeah.
Quickly, I spoke about a lot of examples, right? We have 100 different applications, and in fact, I have written about it as well, that the biggest challenge in terms of digital transformation is integration with the legacy systems, because you could have made some investments already into the different systems that are coming in. But again, I think, as I said, the journey that you need to visualize is, assuming you have 100 different applications which are generating data today in different shapes and forms, you need to find a way to simplify and minimize as much as possible, just to see over a period of time what is most relevant. You will never still be having only, say, 4 or 5 data sources. The way we operate, we always will have some application that will create data. But then how do you find a way to connect all of those applications into a common identifier, right? It could be common database, it could be, as I said, data warehouse, whatever it could be. So there are options which are available where you could connect all of those data sources at the back end, which will feed in through a common identifier into a database, and then you could build intelligence analytics on top of that, which then, as a front user, you need not worry how many applications are actually there at the back end. So easier said than done, but I think there is a journey which we need to work through, and it is possible.
Just one on the lighter note, the more conferences like this you attend, the more you get very worried, saying, oh my God, there is so much happening. But if you actually go deep inside every organization, everyone is on a journey. everyone is like 50, 70, 100% of where they are actually claiming to be. So don't get too worked up. You make your own journey. You can walk that path and you can reach your destination at your own pace. But keep making progress.
Fantastic. I think keep making progress, and I think we already have made a lot of progress in this discussion. A lot of good takeaways, and it's almost like a playbook for finance within technology. So I'd like to. I'm already 9 minutes over time, so I'd like to conclude this panel discussion. I'm sure this discussion can take. I mean, I'm sure most of you would have a lot more questions, but I believe these panelists would be available for some time. I would encourage you to go and discuss with them whatever your questions are, or maybe just have a discussion with them. On this note, I'd like to thank our eminent panelists for sparing their wonderful and very insightful answers. It was truly a pleasure moderating this session.